Her multimillionaire ex-husband crashed her Christmas wedding with a confession that shattered everything she thought she knew. You won't believe what he revealed. The snow fell in thick, silent curtains outside St. Michael's Cathedral in Boston, each flake catching the amber glow of street lamps like frozen stars. Inside, Maya Bennett stood before a full-length mirror in the bride's chamber. Her ivory dress a cascade of silk and lace that felt like a costume she'd borrowed from someone else's life. The scent of pine garland and white roses filled the air, mixing with the faint vanilla of her perfume. The same one she'd worn 5 years ago, when she'd signed divorce papers in a lawyer's office that smelled of coffee and regret. "You look beautiful." Her maid of honor, Sophie, appeared in the mirror's reflection, but Maya barely heard her. She was staring at her own hands, at the new engagement ring, a modest sapphire that Marcus had saved 6 months to buy. Marcus, her fiancé. Kind, stable Marcus who taught high school history and made her coffee every morning and never once made her feel like she wasn't enough. Marcus, who was waiting for her now at the altar, probably adjusting his tie nervously, probably rehearsing his vows one more time. Not like Adrian. The thought crashed through her carefully constructed calm, like a stone through glass. Adrian Blackwell, her ex-husband. The man who'd chosen his empire over their marriage, who'd missed their 2nd anniversary because of a merger in Singapore, who'd looked at her across their dining table one night and said, "I don't know how to be both things, Maya. The man you need, and the man I've built myself to be." "Maya?" Sophie's voice pulled her back. "You're shaking." "I'm fine." But her voice cracked on the lie. She pressed her hand against her stomach, trying to calm the inexplicable dread that had been building all morning. "Just wedding nerves. It's not too late to..." "Don't." Maya turned from the mirror, forcing a smile that felt like it might shatter. "Marcus is good. This is good. I'm choosing the right thing this time." Through the chamber door, she could hear the string quartet beginning the processional music. In 10 minutes, she would walk down that aisle. In 10 minutes, she would marry a man she respected, admired, even loved. In the quiet, safe way you love someone who would never break your heart because he'd never fully possess it. The door opened, and Adrian Blackwell walked in. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, his dark hair slightly disheveled from the snow, his gray eyes, those impossible gray eyes that had once looked at her like she was the only solid thing in his spinning world, locked on hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "No." The word escaped her lips before thought caught up. "No, you don't get to be here." "Maya." His voice was rougher than she remembered, raw in a way that Adrian Blackwell never allowed himself to be. "I need 5 minutes." Sophie stepped between them like a very small, very furious guardian. "Security is going to throw you out in about 30 seconds, Blackwell." But Maya couldn't look away from him. Couldn't stop cataloging the changes, the new lines around his eyes, the shadow of exhaustion that no amount of money could erase, the way his hands were trembling slightly at his sides. Adrian never trembled. "You need to leave." She forced steel into her voice. "I'm getting married." "I know." He took one step closer, and the space between them felt like it was crackling with electricity. "I know, and I'm here to stop it. But not for the reason you think." Before we step deeper into this memory, tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from. Like this video so this story reaches more hearts, and subscribe to follow the next journeys. "I need you to tell me one more thing," Maya said, her voice steady despite the hurricane raging inside her chest. "Did you ever stop loving me?" The question hung in the air between them like a blade. Sophie shifted uncomfortably, looking away, suddenly fascinated by the intricate lace patterns on Maya's veil. Adrian's face transformed, the carefully constructed mask he wore crumbling entirely. "No." The word was raw, scraped from somewhere deep. "Not for a single day. Not for a single hour. Then you're a coward. Maya's words were surgical, precise. Because love isn't just the good parts, Adrian. It's not just Paris hotel rooms and midnight conversations and building empires. It's the ugly parts, too. The sick parts. The falling apart parts. And you didn't trust me enough to let me choose. You're right. He didn't defend himself, didn't argue. I was a coward. I am a coward. Another knock. Miss Bennett, we really need to... Give me a minute. Maya's voice cracked like a whip, and the coordinator's footsteps retreated hastily. She turned back to Adrian, and suddenly she was 26 again, standing in their Kit Bennett in their small apartment before the money, before everything. He'd been cooking, terribly burning pasta because he got distracted reading a contract, and she'd come home exhausted from a 16-hour studio session. He'd looked up at her with sauce on his shirt and said, I know you're tired, but dance with me anyway. There'd been no music, just Adrian humming off key and pulling her close, swaying in their tiny Kit Bennett that smelled like burnt tomatoes and possibility. She'd felt his heartbeat against her cheek, steady and sure, and thought, this is home. This person is home. Do you remember the first time you cooked for me? Maya asked suddenly. Adrian blinked, caught off guard by the shift. I burned the pasta. You burned everything. The pasta, the garlic bread. You somehow even burned the salad. I was nervous. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You were this brilliant, beautiful woman who looked at me like I was worth knowing, not just worth investing in. I wanted to impress you. You made me dance with you in the Kit Bennett. You were so tired you could barely stand, but you smiled anyway. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. That smile was the first time I believed I might actually deserve something good. Maya closed her eyes, and she could smell that burnt Kit Bennett, could feel the scratch of his day-old stubble against her temple, could hear his terrible humming. When had they lost that? When had dancing and Kit Bennetts become negotiations across dining tables? She knew the answer. It was when he'd started disappearing, when his eyes stopped meeting hers, when he began treating their marriage like a business arrangement that needed to be terminated for maximum efficiency. You asked me for the divorce, Adrian said quietly, reading her thoughts like he always could. But I'd already killed us long before that. I starved us to death slowly, hoping you'd leave before you had to watch me deteriorate. It was methodical, cruel, and I convinced myself it was mercy. It wasn't mercy. Maya opened her eyes. It was theft. You stole my agency, my choice. You decided what I could handle, what I deserved to know. That's not protection, Adrian. That's control. I know that now. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and regret written in every line of his body. I've spent 2 years in therapy trying to untangle why I thought pushing you away was better than pulling you close. My therapist says I was replicating the abandonment I experienced as a kid, choosing to be the one who leaves instead of the one who's left. Choosing loneliness. I could control over loss I couldn't. Sophie made a small sound. That's actually pretty insightful for a billionaire. Despite everything, Maya almost laughed. Almost. What do you want, Adrian? She studied his face, looking for manipulation, for strategy. But all she saw was exhaustion and something that looked like hope being tortured to death. What do you actually want from this? From today? I want you to be happy. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. If that's with Marcus, then I'll leave right now, and you'll never see me again. But if you're marrying him because you've given up on the possibility of something more, because I broke your ability to trust in real, messy, complicated love, then I needed you to know the truth. I needed you to know that I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I loved you too much to let you sacrifice yourself. That's not your decision to make. I know. His control shattered completely. I know, Maya, but I can't undo the past. I can only tell you the truth now and let you decide what to do with it. I'm stable. I'm managing. I have a team of doctors and a treatment protocol that's working. I'm not the ticking time bomb I was 5 years ago. But I'm also not perfect. I'll never be cured. There will be bad days. Days when my hands shake too much to hold a glass. Days when I need help with things that used to be simple. And maybe that's still too much to ask. Maybe I burned us too thoroughly to ever rebuild. But you deserve to make that choice with your eyes open. The cathedral bells chimed again. 3 minutes. Maya looked at the medical records on the vanity, still unopened. Then at Sophie, who was watching her with a mixture of concern and something that looked like understanding. Then at the door, beyond which Marcus waited. Kind, stable, uncomplicated Marcus, who would never break her heart because he would never fully possess it. He's a good man, Adrian said, following her gaze. Marcus, I had him investigated. You what? Maya's head whipped around. Old habits. Adrian had the grace to look slightly ashamed. He's exactly what he appears to be, a genuinely good person who cares about you, who will build a nice life with you, who will probably make you happy in 100 small, steady ways. Then why are you here? Because probably happy isn't the same as fully alive. Adrian took one step closer, close enough that Maya could see the silver threading through his dark hair, the new lines around his eyes. I'm not asking you to choose me, Maya. I'm asking you to choose yourself, to choose honesty over safety, to choose the possibility of something extraordinary, even if it's messy and complicated and scary. What if I can't forgive you? The question emerged small, broken. Then I'll live with that. His eyes held hers. But at least you'll have made the choice yourself, instead of making it based on my lies. Sophie cleared her throat. I'm going to check on the guests, she announced, moving toward the door. You have 2 minutes to figure out what the hell you're doing with your life, Maya Bennett. Choose wisely. She paused at the threshold. But for what it's worth, I've never seen you look at Marcus the way you're looking at Adrian right now. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and Maya was alone with her ex-husband and the ruins of what they'd been and the terrifying possibility of what they might become. She picked up the envelope, her hands surprisingly steady. Inside were medical records spanning 5 years, diagnoses, treatment protocols, specialist consultations, evidence of everything Adrian had hidden, everything he'd carried alone. Why now? She asked again, more specific this time. Why not last year? Or 2 years ago when the treatment started working? Because I'm not the same man I was. Adrian's voice was quiet but certain. I've spent 2 years learning how to be vulnerable, how to ask for help, how to let people see me as something other than invincible. And I finally understood that I didn't just hide my illness from you. I hid myself. All of me. The scared parts, the broken parts, the parts that needed someone. He moved closer, and this time Maya didn't step back. I built an empire because I thought success would make me worthy of love, he continued. But all it did was give me more walls to hide behind. You were the first person who saw through them, who wanted the man underneath all the achievement. And when I got sick, I couldn't bear the thought of you seeing me weak. So I became someone you could hate instead. Someone who chose money over you. Someone who deserved to be left. You succeeded. Maya's voice was harsh. I did hate you. Do you still? She wanted to say yes, wanted to armor herself in righteous anger and walk away. But standing here, looking at him, really looking, she couldn't find that simple, clean hatred anymore. Instead, she found something far more dangerous. Understanding. I don't know what I feel, she admitted. Angry, confused, betrayed, but also, she trailed off, unable to name the other thing, the old thing, the thing that had never quite died despite 5 years of trying to bury it. But also, Adrian prompted gently, but also like I've been holding my breath for 5 years and just now realized it. The admission hung between them, honest and terrifying. Through the door, Maya could hear the string quartet playing. The processional was supposed to start. Marcus would be standing at the altar, wondering where she was. 200 guests would be shifting in their seats, checking their phones, whispering. And Maya stood in a bride's chamber in a dress she'd chosen for a safe marriage, holding medical records from a man who'd broken her heart trying to save her from his, and she had no idea what to do. Tell me about the treatment, Maya said suddenly, her voice taking on the clinical edge she used when emotions threatened to overwhelm her. Facts. She could handle facts. How does it work? Adrian seemed surprised by the question, but he answered readily. It's a combination approach, gene therapy to slow the dopamine neuron degeneration, targeted medication to manage symptoms, and aggressive physical therapy to maintain motor control. I have a neurologist at Hopkins I see monthly, and a physical therapist who works with me 4 times a week. 4 times a week. Maya processed this. That's a significant time commitment. Yes. He watched her carefully, like he was trying to understand where she was going with this. I've restructured my entire life around managing this. I have a chief operating officer who handles day-to-day operations. I work remotely most of the time. I've learned to delegate, to trust people, to accept limitations. That must have been hard for you. It wasn't a question. Adrian had always been the kind of person who needed to control everything, who believed he could solve any problem through sheer force of will. It was impossible at first. A rueful smile crossed his face. I fired 3 physical therapists before I found one who wouldn't tolerate my bullshit. Her name is Rita. She's 65, and she once made me cry during a session because I couldn't tie my own shoes and I was too proud to ask for help. Despite everything, Maya felt something crack in her chest. You cried? I broke down completely, sat on the floor of her clinic and sobbed like a child. Adrian's voice was matter of fact, but she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. Rita sat down next to me and said, You can cry and do the work, or you can cry and give up. Either way, you're crying. Might as well be useful about it. Maya found herself smiling despite herself. She sounds terrifying. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, he paused, his eyes meeting hers. Second best. The air between them seemed to thicken. Maya looked away first, her gaze landing on her reflection in the mirror. She looked like a bride. She was supposed to feel like one. I practiced this, she said quietly. Last night, I stood in my apartment and practiced walking down the aisle. I imagined seeing Marcus at the end of it, and I told myself I was happy. That this was what I wanted. Were you happy? I was relieved. The admission felt like betrayal. Of Marcus, of herself, of the life she'd been trying to build. I was relieved that I'd found someone who wouldn't devastate me. Someone predictable. Someone safe. That's not love, Maya. Adrian's voice was gentle, not accusing. That's survival. Maybe survival is enough. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Knew she'd been slowly suffocating in safety, trading passion for peace, settling for contentment because she'd convinced herself that wanting more was greedy. Adrian moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same cedar scent he'd worn when they were married. He must have kept wearing it all these years. The realization hurt in a way she couldn't name. Do you remember the night I proposed? He asked softly. Maya closed her eyes. We were in Montana. You took me to see where you grew up. I drove us 6 hours to the middle of nowhere to show you a ranch where I'd spent 2 years in foster care. It was April, and there was still snow on the ground, and I thought I was losing my mind for bringing you to the place where I'd been most alone. She remembered. They'd stood on a hill overlooking empty plains, wind cutting through their jackets, the landscape so vast and desolate it made her chest ache. Adrian had been quiet for a long time, just staring at the horizon. You told me that standing there used to make you feel invisible? Maya said, opening her eyes. Like you could disappear and the world wouldn't notice. And then I looked at you. Adrian's voice was rough with memory. And I realized I'd spent my whole life trying to become someone too big to be invisible. But what I actually wanted was to be seen by the right person. By you. You asked me to marry you with a ring you'd been carrying for 3 weeks. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. You said you'd been waiting for the perfect moment. But there on that hill, you realized there was no such thing as perfect. There was just real. And you said yes before I even finished asking. Because I knew. The tears spilled over, tracking through her carefully applied makeup. I knew you were the person I wanted to be visible to. The person I wanted to choose every single day. Even on the days when it was hard. I'm still that person, Maya. Adrian's hand lifted, hovering near her face but not touching, asking permission. I'm messier now, more broken, but I'm also more honest, more real. I've spent 5 years learning how to be the man who deserved you the first time. Maya's breath caught. His hand was still trembling slightly. A visible reminder of everything he'd hidden, everything he'd carried alone. Without thinking, she reached up and took his hand in both of hers, steadying it. The touch was electric, familiar, devastating. I can't just walk away from Marcus, she whispered. He's waiting for me. 200 people are waiting. I can't just... Yes, you can. Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. You can do anything, Maya. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Strong enough to walk away from me when I was destroying you. Strong enough to rebuild your entire life. Strong enough to open your heart again even after I shattered it. What if I'm not strong enough to forgive you? Then we'll figure that out together. His other hand came up, cradling her face with infinite gentleness. I'm not asking for easy, Maya. I'm not even asking for guaranteed. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that I've learned. That I understand now what I was too afraid to understand then. That real love isn't about protecting someone from pain. It's about standing beside them through it. Maya's mind was racing. She thought about Marcus, waiting at the altar. Marcus, who deserved a woman who loved him completely, not a woman who was settling for safety. Marcus, who deserved honesty, the same honesty Adrian had denied her. She thought about Sophie's words. I've never seen you look at Marcus the way you're looking at Adrian right now. She thought about the past 5 years, the careful, controlled life she'd built on the ashes of her marriage, the way she'd dated Marcus for 2 years, without ever quite letting him all the way in, the way she'd said yes to his proposal and felt relief instead of joy. She thought about Adrian in that physical therapy clinic, breaking down on the floor because he couldn't tie his shoes, learning to be vulnerable, learning to ask for help, becoming someone new from the pieces of who he'd been. And she thought about herself at 26, dancing in a Kit Bennett that smelled like burnt pasta, feeling Adrian's heartbeat against her cheek and thinking, this is home. I need to talk to Marcus, she said finally, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. I need to tell him the truth. He deserves that much. Adrian's face went carefully blank. And what is the truth? Maya pulled back, just enough to see him clearly. The truth is that I was about to marry him for all the wrong reasons. And that's not fair to him. That's not fair to anyone. And And then, Maya drew a shaky breath. And then I need time to process this, to figure out what I feel underneath all the hurt and anger. I'm not saying yes to you, Adrian, but I'm not saying no either. I'm saying I need space to make this decision for myself, not because you forced my hand by showing up at my wedding, and not because I'm too afraid to try again. Hope and fear warred on Adrian's face. How much time? I don't know. She turned to the mirror, looking at her reflection. The wedding dress, the tear-stained makeup, the woman who was about to walk out of this room and change everything. But I'm not walking down that aisle today. Not to Marcus, not to anyone. Not until I'm absolutely certain who I'm choosing and why. Adrian nodded slowly. Okay. His voice was rough. Okay, that's fair. That's more than fair. I need you to leave, Maya said, stronger now. I need to do this alone. He moved toward the door, then paused. Maya. Yes? Thank you. When she looked at him questioningly, he continued. For listening. For not just throwing me out. For considering the possibility that people can change. That I changed. I don't know if you have, she said honestly. Not yet. But I'm willing to find out. After he left, Maya stood alone in the bride's chamber for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and texted Sophie. I need you. And we need to talk to Marcus. Before anyone else. Through the closed door, she could hear the murmur of guests growing restless. Could imagine Marcus at the altar, checking his watch, wondering what was taking so long. She thought about Adrian driving back to Montana, showing her the place where he'd felt most invisible. Asking her to marry him not in a perfect moment, but in a real one. She thought about the choice ahead of her. Not between two men, but between the woman she'd been trying to become and the woman she actually was. And for the first time in 5 years, Maya Bennett took a deep breath and chose herself. Marcus stood when Maya entered the small chapel office where Sophie had brought him, his face a mixture of concern and confusion. He was handsome in his tuxedo, his sandy hair neatly combed, his expression open and honest in that way of his that had first attracted her to him. He was everything good, everything safe, everything wrong. Maya, what's going on? Are you okay? He moved toward her, reaching for her hands, but she took a small step back and watched something flicker across his face. Understanding, maybe. Or fear. I need to tell you something, Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady. And I need you to let me say all of it before you respond. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Behind him, through the small window, Maya could see the cathedral's main hall filling with restless guests. In 10 minutes, they were supposed to be married. In 10 minutes, she was supposed to become Mrs. Marcus Hayes. Adrian was here, she began, and watched Marcus's whole body tense. My ex-husband. He came to the bride's chamber before the ceremony. Jesus Christ! Marcus's voice was tight. Did he threaten you? Harass you? Because I'll call security, Marcus, please, let me finish. Maya drew a breath. He came to tell me something I should have known 5 years ago. Something that changes everything about why our marriage ended. She told him. Everything. The Parkinson's diagnosis, the treatment, Adrian's decision to push her away rather than let her watch him deteriorate. The lies, the manipulation, the terrible, misguided attempt at mercy that had destroyed them both. Marcus listened, his face growing more closed with every word. When she finally fell silent, he walked to the window and stared out at the cathedral for a long moment. So he's here to win you back, Marcus said finally, his voice flat. He says he's not. Maya twisted her engagement ring, the modest sapphire that suddenly felt like a weight. He says he's here to tell me the truth so I can make an informed choice. And have you? Marcus turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke her. Made your choice? Marcus, Maya's voice cracked. I can't marry you today. He flinched like she'd struck him. Because of him. Because of me. She moved closer, desperate for him to understand. Because I've been lying to myself about what I feel, about why I said yes to you, about what kind of life I actually want. You love him. It wasn't a question. I don't know what I feel about Adrian anymore. Maybe I love him. Maybe I just love who we were. Maybe I'm just scared of being alone with all the feelings I spent 5 years trying to bury. Maya's eyes burned with tears. But I know I don't love you the way you deserve to be loved, and I think part of you has always known that. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. I thought it would be enough, that I could love you enough for both of us, that eventually you'd stop looking past me, stop thinking about him, that you'd wake up one day and realize what we had was real. It is real, Maya insisted. Marcus, you're one of the best people I've ever known. You're kind and patient and steady But I'm not him. Marcus's laugh was bitter. I'm not the grand passion. I'm not the one who makes your hands shake and your heart race. I'm the safe choice, the consolation prize. That's not fair, isn't it? He pulled off his wedding ring, the one he'd bought to match hers, the one he'd been wearing for 3 months already like a promise. Be honest, Maya. Have you ever looked at me the way you must have looked at him today? Have you ever felt about me the way you clearly still feel about him? The silence was answer enough. I'm sorry, Maya whispered. Marcus, I'm so sorry. You deserve someone who chooses you first, who doesn't have to convince herself that safety is the same as love. Yeah. He set the ring on the desk with a soft click. I do. And maybe someday I'll find her. But it was never going to be you, was it? Not really. Not all the way. I wanted it to be, Maya said desperately. I tried so hard. Trying isn't the same as feeling. Marcus moved to the door, then paused. You know what the worst part is? I'm not even surprised. Every time you looked at me, there was this distance, like you were always holding something back. I told myself it was just your personality, that you were guarded because of what he did to you. But it wasn't that. It was that your heart was still in the past, and I was just a placeholder for the future you thought you should want. The words struck true, and Maya couldn't defend herself because he was right. She had been holding back. She'd been treating their relationship like a life raft, something to cling to so she wouldn't drown, not something she actually wanted to sail away in. What do you want me to tell people? She asked quietly. Marcus laughed, harsh and broken. Tell them the truth. Tell them the bride left the groom at the altar because her ex-husband showed up with a sob story, and she realized she'd been settling. Tell them Marcus Hayes wasn't enough. He was never going to be enough. Marcus, go, Maya. His voice was hard now, protective ice forming over the wound. Go figure out your shit with Adrian. Go back to your grand, tragic love story. But don't come back to me when it falls apart again. Don't come looking for the safe choice when the exciting one lets you down. He walked out, leaving Maya alone in the office with her wedding dress pooling around her feet like a ghost of a future that would never exist. Through the door, she could hear his voice, calm, steady, devastating, telling the wedding coordinator there wouldn't be a ceremony. Explaining to the guests, his voice carrying into the chapel. Maya and I won't be getting married today. She's realized she's still in love with her ex-husband, and I respect her honesty even if the timing is shit. Please enjoy the reception. The food's already paid for, and there's no reason for everyone's Saturday to be ruined. Maya sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. She'd just destroyed a good man's wedding day, humiliated him in front of his family and friends, proven every terrible thing Adrian had probably thought about himself 5 years ago, that loving her came with catastrophic collateral damage. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sophie. "I'm outside. Whenever you're ready." But Maya wasn't ready to face the guests streaming out of the cathedral, whispering and staring. Wasn't ready to confront Adrian with the magnitude of what she'd just done. Wasn't ready to sit with the truth Marcus had spoken, that she'd been using him as armor against feeling too much. Another buzz. This time from an unknown number. "I'm parked 2 blocks south. No pressure, no expectations. But if you need to get away from all of this, I'm here." Adrian. Of course he was. Of course he'd anticipated that she'd need an escape route, that the aftermath would be unbearable. It was exactly the kind of forward thinking that had made him a brilliant CEO and a terrible husband. Always 3 steps ahead, always planning, always trying to control the outcome. Except this time, he wasn't controlling. He was offering, leaving the choice to her. Maya looked at her reflection in the small mirror above the desk. Her makeup was ruined, mascara tracking down her cheeks. Her hair was falling out of its elegant updo. Her wedding dress, the one she'd spent 3 months choosing, the one that had cost more than her first car, felt like a costume from someone else's life. She pulled out her phone and texted Adrian, "Give me 20 minutes. I need to change." His response was immediate. "Take all the time you need. I've gotten good at waiting." Then she texted Sophie, "I need your help getting out of this dress, and probably your flask, and definitely your judgment-free friendship." Sophie's reply, "All 3 are waiting for you in the bride's chamber. Also, Marcus just told his mother it's your fault, and she's calling you some very creative names. Fair warning." Maya almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she stood up, smoothed down her dress one last time, and walked back into the cathedral's main hall. The guests were filing out, casting her looks that ranged from sympathetic to scandalized, to smugly satisfied. Marcus's mother was indeed holding court near the entrance, her voice carrying across the space. "I always said she wasn't over him. I told Marcus she had that look. You know the look, like she was always somewhere else." Maya held her head high and kept walking. In the bride's chamber, Sophie was waiting with sweatpants, a t-shirt, and yes, a flask. "Whiskey," she announced. "The good kind, because this day has been batshit enough to earn the expensive stuff." "Help me out of this dress," Maya said, turning her back, "before I lose my nerve." Sophie worked at the buttons, her fingers quick and efficient. "Are you making a huge mistake?" she asked casually, like she was asking about the weather. "Probably," Maya admitted. "Almost definitely. But you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway." The dress fell away, and Maya stepped out of it. Just like that, she wasn't a bride anymore. She was just Maya, messy, confused, terrified Maya who was about to walk out of her own wedding and into the arms of the man who'd broken her heart. Or maybe not his arms. Maybe just into a conversation, into possibility, into the terrifying unknown of choosing what she actually wanted instead of what she thought she should want. "For what it's worth," Sophie said, handing her the sweatpants, "I think you're brave as hell. Stupid maybe, but brave." "I can live with that," Maya said, pulling on the clothes. "I've been playing it safe for 5 years. Maybe it's time to be stupid." She changed quickly, washing the mascara from her face, pulling her hair into a simple ponytail. Without the dress, without the makeup, she looked like herself again. Younger, maybe. More uncertain, but real. "He's going to hurt you again," Sophie warned. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe not the same way. But he's going to hurt you, because that's what happens when you love someone that much. They have the power to destroy you. I know, Maya said. But maybe being destroyed is better than being half alive. She took a long pull from Sophie's flask, felt the whiskey burn down her throat, and walked out of the cathedral into the cold December afternoon where Adrian was waiting. Adrian's car was exactly where he'd said it would be. A sleek black sedan parked 2 blocks from the cathedral, engine running. He was standing beside it, hands in his pockets, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. When he saw Maya approaching in sweatpants and a t-shirt, something in his expression cracked open. "You changed," he said unnecessarily. "I left my wedding dress in a pile on the floor of a church," Maya replied, stopping a few feet away from him. Seemed appropriate to leave the whole performance behind. They stood there for a moment, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. Behind them, Maya could hear car doors slamming, engines starting, the cathedral emptying of guests who'd come for a wedding and gotten a spectacle instead. "Where do you want to go?" Adrian asked finally. "Anywhere but here." He opened the passenger door for her, a gesture so familiar it hurt. Maya slid into the car. The interior smelled like leather and coffee. Adrian's coffee, black with no sugar, sitting in the cup holder. He drove in silence through Boston's streets, the late afternoon sun breaking through clouds in shafts of golden light. 20 minutes later, they pulled up in front of a building Maya recognized, the coffee shop in Cambridge where they'd first met. "You're kidding," Maya said. "You said you wanted to figure out what you felt underneath all the hurt." Adrian turned off the engine. "I thought maybe we should start at the beginning." They went inside. The layout had changed, but the smell was the same. Coffee and cinnamon and possibility. "What did you order that first morning?" Adrian asked as they stood in line. "Cappuccino with extra foam." Maya's voice was soft with memory. "You made fun of me for it. I said it was more air than coffee." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You told me I was a Philistine who didn't understand the art of milk." He ordered for both of them and led her to a table by the window. They sat across from each other, and Maya was suddenly transported back 10 years. "Tell me about the first time you knew," Adrian said quietly. "That you loved me." Maya wrapped her hands around her cappuccino. "Remember that night we stayed up until dawn? 3 weeks after we started dating. You'd had a rough day. Some investor pulled out. Around 3 a.m, you finally broke. You told me you felt like a fraud. Like you were still just the foster kid who didn't belong anywhere." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I shouldn't have dumped that on you." "I'm glad you did." Maya's voice was firm. "That was when I knew. When you let me see the scared parts. When you trusted me with your vulnerability. That's when I fell in love with you. Not with the brilliant CEO, but with the human underneath. And then I spent the next few years hiding those parts from you again," Adrian said quietly. "Until I had something I couldn't hide. And I just ran." "Why?" Maya leaned forward. "You knew I loved the real you. So why did you think I couldn't handle the illness?" Adrian stared into his coffee for a long moment. "My father died when I was 14. What I didn't tell you was how much I hated him by the end." Maya's breath caught. "Adrian, he had ALS. My mother gave up everything to take care of him. Her job, her friends, her identity. She became nothing but his caretaker. And I watched her love turn into this grinding, exhausting obligation." His voice was raw. By the time he died, her first emotion was relief. I saw it on her face. Then the relief turned to shame, and the shame to grief so profound she could barely function. Maya reached across the table, covering his trembling hand with hers. "So you thought you were saving me." "I thought if I pushed you away, You'd leave while you still had your own life. You'd hate me, but you'd be free. His eyes met hers. I didn't understand that I was making the same choice my mother made, sacrificing the relationship to avoid watching someone suffer. I destroyed us to save us, and I was too terrified to see that it wasn't my decision to make. The coffee shop sounds faded. All Maya could hear was the ragged honesty in Adrian's voice. "Tell me about Rita," Maya said suddenly. "Your physical therapist." Adrian blinked, surprised. She told me I was acting like a coward. 6 months into treatment, I was making progress but refusing to tell anyone. She said, "You're not managing, you're hiding. And hiding isn't strength, it's cowardice." He smiled slightly. I tried to fire her. "Of course you did." She refused, said she'd already invested too much time to watch me waste it by being an idiot. Then she gave me homework, emotional homework, made me call 3 people and tell them the truth, said I couldn't come back until I'd practiced being vulnerable. Adrian's voice dropped. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I broke down completely in her clinic. Rita sat down next to me and said, "You can cry and do the work, or you can cry and give up. Either way, you're crying. Might as well be useful about it." Despite everything, Maya smiled. She sounds terrifying. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, second best. His eyes met hers. Maya looked away, her gaze landing on her reflection in the window. I practiced walking down the aisle last night. I imagined seeing Marcus at the end, and I told myself I was happy. Were you? I was relieved. Relieved that I'd found someone who wouldn't devastate me. The admission felt like betrayal. Someone safe. That's not love, Maya. Adrian's voice was gentle. That's survival. Maybe survival is enough. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Adrian moved closer. Do you remember the night I proposed? Montana. You said standing on that hill used to make me feel invisible. Maya closed her eyes. You said you'd spent your whole life trying to become someone too big to be invisible. But what you actually wanted was to be seen by the right person. And you said yes before I even finished asking. Because I knew. Tears spilled over. I knew you were the person I wanted to be visible to. I'm still that person, Maya. His hand lifted, hovering near her face. I'm messier now, more broken, but I'm also more honest. I've spent 5 years learning how to be the man who deserved you the first time. Maya reached up and took his trembling hand in both of hers, steadying it. The touch was electric, devastating. I can't just walk away from Marcus, she whispered. He's waiting. 200 people. Yes, you can. Adrian's thumb brushed her knuckles. You can do anything. You're strong enough to walk away from me when I was destroying you. Strong enough to rebuild. Strong enough to open your heart again even after I shattered it. What if I'm not strong enough to forgive you? Then we'll figure that out together. His hand cradled her face. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for a chance to prove I've learned. That real love isn't about protecting someone from pain. It's about standing beside them through it. Maya thought about Marcus, about Sophie's words. I've never seen you look at Marcus the way you're looking at Adrian right now. About the past 5 years of careful, controlled safety. I need to talk to Marcus, she said finally. I need to tell him the truth. He deserves that much. Adrian's face went carefully blank. And what is the truth? The truth is that I was about to marry him for all the wrong reasons. Maya pulled back just enough to see him clearly. And then I need time to process this, to figure out what I feel underneath all the hurt. I'm not saying yes to you, Adrian, but I'm not saying no either. How much time? I don't know. She turned to look at her reflection. But I'm not walking down that aisle today. Not until I'm certain who I'm choosing and why. Okay. His voice was rough. That's more than fair. I need you to leave. I need to do this alone. He moved toward the door, then paused. Maya, thank you. For listening. For considering the possibility that people can change. I don't know if you have, she said honestly. Not yet, but I'm willing to find out. After he left, Maya stood alone for a long moment. Then she texted Sophie. I need you. And we need to talk to Marcus. She thought about Adrian in Montana, asking her to marry him in a real moment, not a perfect one. She thought about the choice ahead, not between two men, but between the woman she'd been trying to become and the woman she actually was. For the first time in 5 years, Maya Bennett took a deep breath and chose herself. 3 weeks later, Maya's phone rang at 9 p.m. Adrian, right on schedule. They'd been talking every other day, simple conversations that slowly rebuilt something between them. Did you see the snow? He asked. Maya walked to her window. Fat white flakes were falling steadily. I see it. I've been thinking about Montana, about how terrified I was to propose. Adrian paused. My board of directors wants to force me out. Maya's breath caught. What? They found out about the Parkinson's. Someone leaked my medical records. They're calling a vote next week to remove me as CEO. Adrian, I don't care about the company, Maya. His voice was fierce. I thought I did, but these past 3 weeks, talking to you, building something real, I finally understand. The company isn't my life. You are. What are you saying? I'm not going to fight them. I'm walking away. I'm resigning tomorrow, keeping my shares, but I'm done being CEO. His voice was certain. I'm done putting my identity in something that can be taken away. I'm done being the man who chooses success over love. Adrian, this is your entire life. It's a job title. He cut her off gently. My identity is the choices I make, the people I love, the kind of man I am when no one's watching. You taught me that. Success is about creating things that outlast you. Relationships, love, the way you change people by letting them see you. Maya pressed her hand over her mouth, trying to contain the sob building in her chest. I'm going to the board meeting tomorrow. I'd like you to be there, not to support me, but because I want you to see me make this choice. I want you to see that I've learned. He paused. If you're not ready, I understand. But Maya, I love you. I've loved you since that first morning. I loved you when I pushed you away, and I'll love you whether you choose me or not. After he hung up, Maya sat in darkness, processing. Adrian was walking away from everything he'd built, for the chance to be different, for the possibility of them. She texted Sophie, I need to borrow a professional outfit. The next day, Maya stood outside Blackwell Technologies at 1:55 p.m. Security escorted her to the 40th floor conference room. 15 board members sat around a table. Adrian sat at the head, calm and collected. His eyes met Maya's as she entered, and relief flooded his expression. Miss Bennett, this is a closed meeting, the chairman said stiffly. She's here as my guest, Adrian said calmly, and as a reminder of why I'm making this decision. The chairman nodded curtly. Mr. Blackwell, we're here to discuss concerns about your health and ability to continue as CEO. My Parkinson's diagnosis, Adrian said clearly. Let's call it what it is. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. We're concerned this condition may impair your leadership, the chairman continued. I understand. Adrian stood. My diagnosis was 5 years ago. I've managed the company successfully throughout treatment. Stock value increased 40%. We launched 3 product lines, acquired 2 competitors. My health has not impaired my performance. But it will eventually we all decline. Adrian's voice was steady. The question isn't whether I'll face limitations. It's whether I'm currently capable. The data shows I am. You concealed material information for 5 years, the chairman shot back. That's grounds for termination. You're right. Adrian's commanding presence filled the room, not from power, but from truth. I did conceal this. I was ashamed, terrified. And that shame, that inability to be vulnerable, that's the real reason I need to step down. The room went silent. I've spent my life running from being seen as weak, Adrian continued. I grew up in foster care. I learned that showing vulnerability meant being discarded. So I built walls. I built an empire. I became too successful to ignore. And I forgot how to be human. He turned, finding Maya's eyes. 5 years ago, I had a wife who loved me. When I got sick, instead of letting her help, I pushed her away. I destroyed our marriage because I couldn't bear her seeing me as less than perfect. I chose pride over love. Mr. Blackwell, this is hardly... It's completely relevant, Adrian interrupted. I can fight you, hire lawyers, probably win. But fighting means more walls, more armor, more choosing power over humanity. And I'm done. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. This is my resignation, effective immediately. I'll maintain my shares, but I'm done running this company. Not because I'm incapable, but because being CEO isn't who I am. It's just what I do. And what I want now is to live. Really live. With honesty and vulnerability. He set the envelope on the table and walked to Maya, kneeling in front of her chair. I'm choosing you, he said quietly, though everyone heard. Not to manipulate you, but because choosing you means choosing to be someone who values love over power, who understands that vulnerability is strength. Tears streamed down Maya's face. I love you, and I'm done hiding from that. If you'll have me, messy and broken and learning, I promise I'll let you see all of me. No more lies, just honesty, partnership, and choosing each other even when it's terrifying. Maya looked at this man kneeling before her, not the billionaire, but just Adrian. Trembling hands and absolute certainty. Stand up, she whispered. He did. You're an idiot, she said. You walked away from billions. You destroyed your professional reputation. You made a grand gesture in front of 15 people. I know. And you did it anyway. I did. Maya framed his face with both hands. That was the stupidest, most romantic thing anyone has ever done for me. So, is that a yes? That's a maybe. She smiled through tears. That's a, I need you to prove this isn't just a gesture, that you've really changed. That's a, I'm willing to try if you do the work. I'll do the work, whatever it takes. Maya kissed him. Right there, in front of the entire board, she kissed her ex-husband and felt 5 years of grief crash over her like a wave. They left the building hand in hand, walking into the snow. And for the first time in 5 years, Maya felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 6 months later, Maya sat in the Cambridge coffee shop, sketching while waiting for Adrian. The place still smelled like coffee and cinnamon, still held that particular spring light. But everything else had changed. Adrian walked in, casual in jeans and a sweater, his hands carrying the slight tremor he no longer hid. He'd been at physical therapy with Rita. You started without me, he said, sliding across from her. You're late. Rita added extra exercises. My grip strength is improving, he demonstrated. See? Almost steady. Almost, Maya agreed, taking his hand. The tremor was there, subtle but present. A reminder of everything they'd chosen. They'd been rebuilding for 6 months. It wasn't easy. There were days Maya felt angry about the lies. Days Adrian struggled with accepting help. Days they fought, cried, questioned everything. But there were also days like this. Dr. Morrison wants to know if you'll come to my next session, Adrian said. He thinks we should talk about moving in together. Maya's heart kicked. They'd been taking things deliberately slow. Separate apartments, careful boundaries, building trust one moment at a time. Do you want to move in together? She asked. I want whatever. He caught himself, smiled. No, let me try again. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life where we're not navigating separate spaces. But I know you need time. That's better, Maya said. More honest. I'm learning. Slowly. Maya studied him. The lines around his eyes, the silver in his hair, the way he held himself with less armor. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. I've been thinking about Montana, she said. The ranch where you proposed. I think we should go back this summer. Why? Because I want to see it through different eyes, not as someone marrying perfection, but as someone who knows real love is messy and complicated and scary. Adrian's eyes brightened. You're saying yes to moving in. I'm saying yes to a lot of things. Maya smiled, feeling something settle in her chest. Yes to moving in. Yes to Montana. Yes to building something new. Yes to choosing you every day, even when it's hard. Even when I'm impossible? Especially then. You're my kind of impossible. They walked through Cambridge streets lined with blooming trees. Spring had arrived with force, magnolias exploding in pink and white, the world transforming from gray to green overnight. Tell me about the building, Adrian said. The one you're presenting. Community center in Roxbury. Sustainable design, rooftop gardens, spaces that serve the community. Maya's voice was animated. You're brilliant. Have I told you that recently? Not in the last 3 hours. They reached Maya's apartment, soon to be their apartment. Adrian walked her to the door like always. Stay, Maya said. We can make dinner. You can pretend to cook. I can order takeout when you burn something. I'm much better at cooking now. Rita taught me. Adrian did try to cook, pasta with garlic, except he got distracted and burned the garlic. Calling in takeout, Maya announced, laughing. They ordered Thai food and ate on her couch, legs tangled, talking about everything. About Adrian's next venture. Something focused on social impact. About Maya's building. About whether they should get a dog. You hate dogs, Maya said. I'm intimidated by their emotional honesty. Later, they lay in Maya's bed, not making love, though that had come back too. Just lying together, Adrian's arm around her, Maya's head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Tell me what you're thinking, Adrian said. I'm thinking about that first morning, when you came into the coffee shop and looked at my sketches like they mattered. They did matter. They do matter. I'm thinking about how we thought love was enough, that wanting each other badly enough would make everything work. It wasn't enough, Adrian said. Love without honesty, without vulnerability. That's not really love. That's performance. But we're learning, Maya said. We're learning how to love with our eyes open. Are you happy? Adrian asked, vulnerability in his voice. Maya looked up at him. I'm terrified. I'm scared you'll leave, even though I know you won't. I'm scared of giving my heart to someone who can still break it. I'm scared of your bad health days, of uncertain futures. She saw him start to pull away, old pattern. But, Maya continued, holding him closer, I'm also happier than I've been in 5 years, because this time we're doing it right. We're choosing each other with complete honesty. And that's terrifying, but it's also magic. Real magic. Real magic, Adrian repeated. I like that. Me too. Outside, the spring night breathed with possibility. Inside, 2 people who had broken each other were learning to love again. Not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly. I love you, Maya whispered. I love you too. Every messy, complicated piece of it. They fell asleep tangled together, imperfect and honest. And when morning came, they woke up and chose each other all over again. Because that's what love was. Not a single choice, but 1,000 small ones. Not perfection, but presence. Not safety, but truth. Maya Bennett, who had walked out of her own wedding and into the terrifying possibility of choosing love over fear, knew she'd made the right choice. Finally. Completely. Forever. The end. If this story touched you, leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and subscribe for the next journey.